Una Park rubbed her tired eyes as she walked through the massive space station. The metal walls gleamed under bright lights that never seemed to dim. She had been awake for almost 20 hours straight, and her body felt heavy with exhaustion. The station operated on a 30-hour cycle, which was normal for the Velthari people who lived here. But for humans like Una, it made sleep nearly impossible. She was part of Earth's first diplomatic team to meet with the Velthari. These tall, powerful aliens had scales that shimmered like oil on water, changing colors when they moved. They stood over 7 feet tall, with sharp claws and teeth that could tear through metal. Their reputation as warriors had spread across the galaxy. When they finally agreed to talk with humans, Earth sent its best people. Una was chosen because she studied alien life and understood how different species thought and acted. The past 3 weeks had been nothing but meetings. Long, tense meetings where every word mattered. The Velthari watched humans with suspicious eyes. They tested every promise and questioned every gesture. Ambassador Dae Jung, the leader of the human team, barely slept. He spent every moment trying to prove that humans could be trusted. Una helped translate not just words, but meanings. She explained why humans smiled or shook hands. She taught the Velthari that humans meant no harm. Today was different. Today, the Velthari had done something unexpected. They invited Una to see their nursery chamber. This was a huge honor. The Velthari never let outsiders near their young. Their children were sacred, protected by ancient laws and fierce guards. When the invitation came, Ambassador Dae Jung pulled Una aside. "This is important," he told her, his face serious. Una understood. This wasn't just a tour. This was the Velthari way of showing trust. If they let her near their children, it meant they were considering friendship with humanity. She couldn't afford to make any mistakes. A Velthari female named Bora led Una through corridors that grew quieter with each turn. Bora's scales were a deep green color, and she moved with the grace of a trained warrior. She said nothing as they walked, but her eyes constantly scanned for danger. Finally, they reached a large door covered in strange symbols. "Beyond this door are our most precious treasures," Bora said in her deep voice. The translator device in Una's ear turned the growling sounds into words she could understand. "You will show respect. You will remain calm. You will not make sudden movements. My neen 17 bader. My neen 17 bader. My neen 17 bader. Our sumpside. My neen 17 bader." "I understand," Una replied softly. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was completely different from the rest of the station. Soft lights glowed from the walls. The air was warm and smelled like fresh plants. Cushions and climbing structures filled the space. And in the center of the room, 3 small Velthari were playing. Una's breath caught in her throat. The cubs were beautiful. They were about the size of human 6-year-olds, with scales that hadn't fully hardened yet. They sparkled with colors that shifted between blue and purple. Their eyes were large and curious. When they noticed Una, they stopped playing and stared. "They have never seen a human before," Bora said. "Stay there. Let them come to you if they choose." Una stood very still. She had studied Velthari behavior for years, but reading about cubs was different from seeing them. One of the cubs, braver than the others, took a step forward, then another step. It tilted its head, studying Una with intelligent eyes. "Hello," Una whispered. She slowly lowered herself to sit on the floor, making herself smaller and less threatening. The brave cub chirped softly. The sound was almost like a bird's call. It came closer, sniffing the air. Velthari had an excellent sense of smell. The cub reached out one small clawed hand and gently touched Una's arm. Its eyes widened. "Warm," the cub said in simple Velthari words. "You are very warm." The other 2 cubs, seeing their sibling was safe, came closer too. They touched Yuna's hands, her clothes, her hair. Their claws were careful, not scratching. They seemed fascinated by how different she was from their own kind. Humans have higher body temperature than Velthari, Yuna explained to Bora. We run hot. Bora nodded but said nothing. She watched every interaction with sharp eyes. The cubs began to play again. But now, they included Yuna in their games. They brought her soft toys and showed her their climbing structure. They chirped and made small growling sounds that seemed like laughter. Yuna found herself smiling. Despite everything that made them different, these cubs acted like children everywhere. They were curious, playful, and full of energy. Time passed, though Yuna wasn't sure how much. The warm room and soft lights made everything feel dreamlike. She had been running on too little sleep for too long. The past weeks of stress and worry pressed down on her. Her eyes felt heavy. One of the cubs, the smallest one, curled up next to Yuna's leg. The cub's body was warm and its breathing steady. It made a soft purring sound, like a cat but deeper. The vibration was soothing. Another cub settled on her other side. The third one sprawled across her lap, completely trusting. They like you, Bora said, and for the first time, her voice held a hint of surprise. This is unusual. Yuna wanted to respond, but her exhaustion was overwhelming. The warm room, the purring cubs, the soft cushions beneath her. It was all too comfortable. Her body screamed for sleep. She told herself she would just close her eyes for a moment. Just a moment to rest. I'm just going to sit here. Quietly, Yuna mumbled. Bora said something in response, but Yuna didn't hear it. Sleep pulled her down like a wave, sudden and irresistible. Her head tilted back against the wall. Her breathing slowed and deepened. Within seconds, she was completely unconscious. The cubs, feeling her relax, snuggled closer to the warm human. They pushed against her sides, seeking her heat. Their purring grew louder, a sign of complete contentment. They felt safe. Bora stood watching, her expression unreadable. This was not supposed to happen. The human was supposed to visit and leave. She was not supposed to fall asleep, especially not with the cubs curled against her like she was their own mother. Bora's clawed hand moved to the communication device on her belt. She needed to report this immediately. But she hesitated. The cubs were sleeping peacefully. More peaceful than they had been in days. Moving the human might wake them. Disturbing sleeping cubs was a serious offense in Velthari culture. She made her decision. Her claws pressed the emergency signal. Within minutes, this room would be filled with guards. The human would have much to answer for. But as Bora looked at the sleeping human and the peaceful cubs, she felt something strange. Something that confused her warrior's heart. The human looked vulnerable. Yes, but she also looked protective. Even in sleep, her arms had moved slightly to shelter the cubs. Bora's scales rippled with uncertainty. What had this human done? And more importantly, what would happen when she woke up? Yuna woke slowly, fighting her way up from the deepest sleep she'd had in weeks. Something felt wrong. The air was too still, too quiet. Space stations were never this quiet. There was always the hum of life support, the distant sound of footsteps, the beep of machines. But now, she heard nothing except her own breathing. She opened her eyes. 12 Velthari warriors surrounded her in a perfect circle. Each one wore black armor that looked like it could stop a missile. Their weapons were drawn and pointed in her direction. The weapons glowed with a faint blue light that probably meant they were charged and ready to fire. The warriors stood perfectly still, like statues carved from stone, but their eyes were very much alive, and they watched her with an intensity that made her blood run cold. Yuna's heart started pounding. She wanted to jump up, to run, to do something, but she couldn't move. The 3 cubs were still pressed against her body, sleeping peacefully. One had its head on her lap. Another was curled against her side. The third had somehow ended up with its small arms wrapped around her waist. They were all purring softly, completely unaware of the danger filling the room. "Don't move," a voice said. Yuna carefully turned her head toward the speaker. A massive Velthari warrior stood directly in front of her. He was bigger than the others, his armor decorated with silver markings that suggested high rank. His scales were a dark red color that reminded Yuna of dried blood. His eyes were golden and fixed on her like targeting lasers. "I'm Commander Taemin of the Vel Corps," he said. "These cubs you sleep beside are not ordinary young. They are the children of Emperor Hyunwoo himself. You are in the presence of the royal heirs." Yuna's stomach dropped. Royal cubs. She had fallen asleep next to the Velthari Emperor's children. The translator in her ear was picking up urgent whispers from the other guards. She caught fragments of their conversation. "Never seen anything like this. How did she get so close? The cubs show no distress. This could be an attack strategy. But they're sleeping so peacefully." Commander Taemin raised one clawed hand, and the whispers stopped immediately. He took a step closer to Yuna, his armored boots making no sound on the floor. "Explain yourself, human," he demanded. "Why are you sleeping beside the royal cubs?" Yuna's mouth was dry. She had to swallow twice before she could speak. "It was an accident," she said, keeping her voice soft so she wouldn't wake the cubs. "I was so tired. The room was warm. They curled up next to me and I—" "Sorry?" One of the other guards spoke up, his voice harsh. "Do you understand what you've done? This is either an act of trust so deep it has no name in our language, or you have placed yourself in position to harm the future of our empire." Another guard, a female with bright green scales, stepped forward. Her nameplate read, Jiwon. She looked at Yuna with less anger and more confusion. "In our culture," Jiwon explained, "only pack-bonded guardians sleep beside cubs. Only those who would die to protect them. It requires complete trust from both the guardian and the young ones." "But I'm not," Yuna started to say. "Exactly," Commander Taemin interrupted. "You are not Velthari. You are not family. You are barely known to us. Yet here you are, sleeping as if you belong to the royal family itself." Yuna looked down at the cubs. They were still sleeping, their small chests rising and falling with steady breaths. Their scales glittered in the soft light. They looked so peaceful, so trusting. She felt a strange, protective feeling rise in her chest. "I would never hurt them," Yuna said quietly. "They're children." "On. Words are easy," Taemin said. "But the cubs cannot lie. Their bodies tell truth that mouths cannot speak." He gestured to Jiwon, who pulled out a small device. She pointed it at the sleeping cubs and read the display. "Their heart rates are normal," Jiwon reported. "Actually, they're better than normal. Their pheromone signatures show complete contentment. Their brain patterns indicate deep, restful sleep. There are no stress markers at all." The guards exchanged looks. Something about this information bothered them. "This never happens with strangers," another guard said. "Even trusted servants make the cubs nervous. They only sleep like this with their parents, or the Empress, which means either this human has somehow tricked them," Taemin said slowly, "or they genuinely recognize her as safe." Taemin. How could they recognize a human as safe?" the harsh-voiced guard demanded. "It makes no sense." Yuna's mind was racing. She remembered something from her studies, something about Velthari biology. "Your cubs," she said carefully. "They can sense intent, can't they? It's not just smell or hearing. They can feel if someone means them harm." Taemin's eyes narrowed. "You have studied our kind." "It's my job," Yuna replied. "I'm a xenobiologist. I study how different species think and act. I know that Velthari cubs have special abilities. They can read emotions through pheromones and body language that adults have learned to hide." "Then you know," Jiwan said. That these cubs would not sleep peacefully next to someone who wished them harm. It would be impossible. 1. I don't wish them harm, Yuna said firmly. I fell asleep by accident, yes. But even if I hadn't, I would never hurt children. Any children. That's not who humans are. Bold words, Taemin said. But we have a problem. If we wake you and move you, the cubs will wake. They will be startled. Possibly frightened. Frightening the royal heirs is a crime. And if I stay still? Yuna asked. If you stay still, we don't know your true intentions. You could be waiting for an opportunity. This situation has never occurred before. Our laws have no answer for what to do with a sleeping human who has somehow bonded with the royal cubs. The room fell silent. The only sounds were the soft purring of the cubs and the distant hum of the station's systems. Yuna could feel the tension in the air, like electricity before a storm. These warriors were trained to protect the royal family with their lives. They would kill her in an instant if they thought she was a threat. But they were also bound by their own laws. They couldn't risk harming the cubs by acting rashly. A new sound broke the silence. Footsteps, many of them, approaching from outside. The door opened, and more Velthari entered. These wore different uniforms, rich with decorations. Court officials, Yuna guessed. And behind them came two figures that made every warrior in the room drop to one knee. The male Velthari was enormous, bigger even than Commander Taemin. His scales were deep purple, almost black, and his eyes held the weight of command. He wore a simple but elegant robe, marked with symbols of authority. This had to be Emperor Hyunwoo. The female beside him was slightly smaller but no less impressive. Her scales were silver blue, and she moved with calm grace. Her eyes were intelligent and kind. Empress Sora, Yuna remembered from her briefings. The Empress looked at the scene before her. Her children sleeping peacefully against a human. The guards standing ready. The tension filling the room. And then, she smiled. How interesting, the Empress said softly. Our children have chosen a most unusual guardian for their nap. Emperor Hyunwoo's voice rumbled like thunder. Explain this situation, Commander. Taemin bowed his head. Your Majesty, the human fell asleep with the cubs. We arrived to find them like this. The cubs show no distress. In fact, they sleep better than they have in weeks. We don't know how to proceed. The Emperor stared at Yuna for a long moment. She met his eyes, trying not to show fear. She had to be brave. For the cubs, for humanity, for the future. The Emperor walked closer, his footsteps silent despite his massive size. Yuna held her breath. The cub on her lap stirred slightly, making a small sound. Without thinking, Yuna's hand moved to gently rest on the cub's back. She made a soft, shushing noise. The same sound her own mother had made when Yuna was small and had bad dreams. The cub settled immediately, purring louder. Empress Sora's eyes widened slightly. Did you see that? She asked her husband. I saw, the Emperor replied, his voice giving nothing away. The Empress turned to one of the court officials. Bring up the security footage from when the human first entered this room. I want to see everything. I want to see everything. A guard quickly pulled out a tablet and began working on it. Within moments, a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed Yuna entering the nursery chamber, sitting down, the cubs approaching her. The video played at high speed, showing the hours that passed. Yuna talking softly to the cubs playing. Eventually, Yuna's eyes closing as sleep took her. But the Empress made the guards slow down the footage and replay one specific moment. It showed one of the cubs waking up in the middle of the group nap. The small Velthari had made a distressed sound, probably from a bad dream, and Yuna, still completely asleep, had moved her hand in a specific pattern across the cub's back. 3 circles, then a gentle stroke from head to tail. That is the motion, the Empress said softly. that Velthari parents use to calm frightened children. It is instinctive to our people. We all do it without thinking. How could a human, asleep and unconscious, know to do this? The guards looked at each other. Commander Taemin's expression shifted from suspicion to confusion. She couldn't know, Jiwan said. Unless it's coincidence. I don't believe in that kind of coincidence, the Empress replied. She looked at Yuna with new interest. Tell me, Dr. Yuna Park, do humans have similar instincts with their own young? Yuna nodded slowly, careful not to disturb the cubs. Yes. Humans rub their children's backs when they're upset. We make circular motions. It's soothing. It's something every human parent does. Fascinating, the Empress said. Different species, different worlds, yet the same gesture of comfort. The Emperor was less impressed. This proves nothing. The human could still be dangerous. She could be waiting for an opportunity. I don't think so, the Empress said. She gestured to the sleeping cubs. Look at our children, my love. When was the last time they slept so peacefully? Mincio has been having nightmares for weeks. June refuses to nap unless someone stays with him constantly. Little Hana cries whenever we leave the room. But now, with this stranger, they sleep like they have no fears at all. The Emperor's jaw tightened. Yuna could see he was struggling with something. Finally, he spoke. There is an old law, the trial of true intent. When someone's purpose is unclear, but cubs have shown them trust, the law allows for a test. The trial has not been used in centuries, Commander Taemin said. Then perhaps it is time, the Empress replied. She turned to Yuna. Dr. Park, the trial of true intent works like this. You will stay with our children for one full day and night cycle. You will care for them, play with them, feed them, help them sleep. Guards will watch your every move. If at any point the cubs show genuine distress because of your actions, you will be judged as having hostile intent. If they remain happy and healthy, you will be deemed trustworthy. Yuna's heart pounded. A full day with the royal cubs, with armed guards watching, ready to kill her if she made one wrong move. But what choice did she have? If she refused, they would think she had something to hide. And if she agreed, at least she had a chance. I accept, Yuna said. You understand, the Emperor said coldly, that if you fail, it will not just be your life that ends. The peace talks between our peoples will end as well. Humanity will be considered untrustworthy. The weight of that statement pressed down on Yuna like a physical force. The future of two civilizations rested on her ability to care for 3 alien children. But when she looked down at the cubs sleeping so peacefully, she felt her fear fade. They were just children, and she had spent her whole life learning how to understand others, how to bridge differences. I understand, she said firmly. The Emperor nodded. Then let the trial begin. Guards, you will watch, but not interfere unless the human proves dangerous. He looked at Yuna one last time. I hope for your sake, and for humanity's, that you are what you appear to be. The Emperor and Empress left, along with most of the court officials. Only Commander Taemin and 6 other guards remained. They positioned themselves around the room, weapons ready, eyes alert. The cubs began to wake up as the activity in the room increased. The smallest one, Hana, opened her eyes first. She saw Yuna, and immediately chirped happily, snuggling closer. Minseo woke next, yawning to show many small, sharp teeth. June was last, grumpy about being disturbed. Hello, Yuna said softly to them. The cubs looked at her, then at the guards, sensing the tension. Minseo tilted his head, curious. Why are the warriors here? He asked in simple words. They're here to watch over you, Yuna explained. To keep you safe. They're very good at their jobs. Are you staying? Hana asked hopefully. Yes, Yuna said, managing a smile. I'm going to stay with you for a while. Is that okay? All three cubs chirped and made happy sounds. They clearly liked this idea. Commander Taemin's voice cut through the moment. The cubs will need to eat soon. Can you handle feeding them? I'll try, Yuna said. What do they eat? A guard brought in containers of what looked like meat strips and some kind of purple vegetable. There were also bowls of a thick liquid that smelled sweet. Yuna had read about Velthari diets. The young ones needed protein and minerals to help their scales grow strong. She helped the cubs settle at a low table. They ate messily, like children everywhere, getting food on their faces and hands. Hana tried to eat too fast and started coughing. Without thinking, Yuna gently patted her back until the coughing stopped, then wiped her mouth with a cloth. Slower, Yuna said kindly. The food isn't going anywhere. Hana nodded and ate more carefully. After eating, the cubs wanted to play. They brought Yuna balls and climbing toys. They wanted her to chase them. Yuna, still exhausted but determined, played along. She quickly learned that Velthari cubs were fast, very fast. She couldn't catch them in a straight run. But she noticed something. They tired quickly from sprinting. After a few minutes of running at full speed, they needed to rest. Yuna, however, could keep going. Her human endurance let her maintain a steady pace long after the cubs slowed down. She wasn't faster, but she was more persistent. Jiwan, watching from her post, leaned toward Commander Taemin. Did you see that? The human doesn't have our speed, but she doesn't stop. She just keeps going. Persistence. Taemin muttered. I've read about this. Humans are endurance hunters. They don't catch prey by being fast. They catch it by never giving up. The hours passed. Yuna played with the cubs, taught them human games, sang them songs in her own language. They found her singing hilarious, imitating the strange sounds she made. She told them stories about Earth, about animals they had never seen. Tigers and elephants and whales. The cubs listened with wide eyes. When evening came, according to the station's cycle, the cubs grew tired. They became cranky, as overtired children do. Hana started crying because June took her favorite toy. June got angry and hissed. Minseo tried to climb too high and got scared. Yuna handled each situation calmly. She helped Hana and June share. She talked Minseo down from the climbing structure, encouraging him step by step. She got all three ready for bed, making sure they brushed their teeth and washed their faces. The guards watched everything, looking for any sign of danger, any hint of wrongness. But they saw only a tired human caring for three alien children with patience and kindness. As the cubs finally settled down to sleep, they all wanted to be near Yuna again. They piled around her like they had before, seeking her warmth. Within minutes, they were purring and drifting off. Commander Taemin looked at his guards. They all wore the same expression. Confusion mixed with something else. Maybe respect. She has passed the first test, he said quietly. But the trial is not over yet. The night cycle on the station was quiet. The cubs slept peacefully, their small bodies warm against Yuna. She sat with her back against the wall, not allowing herself to sleep this time. The guards watched her from their positions around the room. After hours of silence, Commander Taemin approached her. You are not sleeping, he observed. I can't, Yuna replied softly. You must be exhausted, the commander said. It wasn't a question. I am, but I'll manage. Taemin studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he sat down nearby. Not close enough to threaten, but close enough to talk without disturbing the cubs. I have been thinking, he said, about your species. You are small compared to us, weaker in strength. Your claws are barely worth mentioning. Your teeth could not tear through armor. Yet you are here, trusted with our most precious lives. Sometimes strength isn't about muscles, Yuna said. Explain. Yuna thought carefully about how to answer. Humans survived on our world not because we were the biggest or strongest, We survived because we worked together. Because we could run longer than any predator. Because we could think and adapt. We are persistence hunters, like you said. Even when you should? Taemin asked. Especially then. The commander was quiet for a moment. Tell me about human young. How do you protect them? Fiercely. Yuna said without hesitation. Human parents will die for their children. We carry them when they can't walk. We stay awake when they're sick. We teach them everything we know, so they can survive after we're gone. It's instinct. It's what makes us human. Jiwon joined the conversation from her post. That sounds familiar, she said. We do the same for our cubs. Perhaps we are not so different. No, Taemin agreed slowly. Perhaps not. He pulled out his tablet and began typing. I want to understand more. About human evolution. About how your kind became what it is. He read for a few minutes, his eyes moving across the screen. Then, his expression changed. This is remarkable. It says here that humans are the best endurance runners in your world. That you could chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. It's true, Yuna confirmed. We may not be fast in short bursts, but we can keep going. Our bodies are built for it. We sweat to cool down, so we don't overheat. Our legs are designed for long distances. Our minds can push through pain and exhaustion. So you never truly stop, Jiwon said, fascination in her voice. You just keep coming. When we need to. Yes. Commander Taemin looked at Yuna with new eyes. That is a terrifying thought. An enemy that never stops chasing you. That will follow you until you drop from exhaustion or turn to fight. Or, Yuna said gently, a friend who will never abandon you, who will stay by your side no matter how long the journey takes. The words hung in the air between them. Taemin nodded slowly, understanding the deeper meaning. You have been awake for almost 2 days now, he said. Yet you sit here, alert, watching over cubs that are not even your species. This is your persistence in action. Before Yuna could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed. The guards immediately jumped to their feet, weapons raised. The cubs woke up, crying, frightened by the noise. Report! Taemin barked into his communication device. A voice crackled back, tense and urgent. Security breach. Multiple hostiles have entered the station. They're heading toward the royal chambers. It's the Kelvar faction, sir. The isolationists. They oppose the peace talks. Yuna's blood ran cold. A terrorist attack. Here. Now. Tenorist. 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 The cubs were crying louder, scared, and confused. Yuna pulled them close, trying to comfort them despite her own fear. It's okay, she whispered to them. You're safe. We'll keep you safe. Commander Taemin was already organizing his guards. Jiwon, Wonbin, Nari, Hyuk, get to the main corridors. Stop them before they reach this sector. Eunji and I will stay with the cubs. 4 guards rushed out immediately. That left only Commander Taemin and 1 other guard, Eunji, to protect the nursery. And Yuna realized with growing horror that the attackers knew about the trial. They knew that most of the royal guard would be away from the cubs. This was the perfect time to strike. They planned this, she said. They knew the cubs would be vulnerable. Right. Untrust. Yes, Taemin said grimly. He moved to position himself between the cubs and the door. We will hold them here. No one will touch the royal heirs. Yuna heard weapons fire in the distance, shouting, the sounds of fighting. The cubs were shaking, pressed against her. She could feel their terror through their trembling bodies. Hide them, Yuna said suddenly. What? Taemin looked at her. There are hiding spaces in this room. Places built into the walls for the cubs to play in. Hide them there. If the attackers break through, they'll waste time searching. Taemin understood immediately. Yuna quickly led the cubs to a section of the wall that opened into a small den. It was designed for play, but it would work as a hiding spot. "Get in," she told them gently. "Stay quiet. Like a game of hide and seek. Remember? We played earlier." "I'm scared," Hana whimpered. "I know, sweetheart. But you're brave. You're all so brave." Yuna hugged each of them quickly. "Stay here until Commander Tae-min or your parents come for you. Don't come out for anyone else." Min Seo, the oldest, nodded seriously. "We'll be brave." The cubs crawled into the hiding space. Unji helped camouflage the entrance. Then Tae-min pulled Yuna back toward the main door. "You should hide too," he said. "No. This is not your fight, human. Those are children in there," Yuna said, her voice firm despite her fear. "I don't care what species they are. I won't hide while they're in danger." The sounds of fighting grew closer. Then there was an explosion. The door to the nursery blew inward, smoke and debris filling the room. Through the smoke, figures moved. Velthari wearing mismatched armor, carrying weapons. 6 of them. "For the purity of our people," one shouted. "No aliens near our young. No peace with humans." Commander Tae-min and Unji opened fire. The room erupted into chaos. Yuna dropped to the floor, trying to stay out of the line of fire. Energy blasts flew overhead, hitting walls and equipment. The attackers spread out, trying to flank the 2 guards. Tae-min fought like a demon. His movements were precise, deadly. He took down 2 attackers quickly. Unji wounded another. But there were too many. An energy blast caught Unji in the shoulder. She went down, still trying to shoot. One of the attackers spotted the hiding space. Yuna's body moved before her mind could think. She ran toward the attacker. Not away from danger, but directly into it. She had no weapon, no armor, no training. But she had something else. She had the knowledge of how to read body language, how to predict movement. And she had human unpredictability. The attacker expected her to fight him. Instead, she dodged past him, grabbing a piece of debris from the exploded door. She threw it, not at the attacker, but at a control panel on the wall. The panel sparked, and the lights in that section of the room went out. In the sudden darkness, she moved. Not to fight, but to lead them away. She made noise at the opposite end of the room from where the cubs were hiding. "Over here," she shouted. "Come get me." The attackers, confused by this strange human behavior, turned toward her voice. They chased her through the maze of climbing structures and play equipment. Yuna ran, using her smaller size to slip through gaps they couldn't easily follow. She knocked over objects to slow them down. She created obstacles. She wasn't trying to win. She was buying time. Time for the cubs to stay hidden. Time for help to arrive. One attacker cornered her. He raised his weapon, anger on his face. "Stupid human. You should have stayed on your own world." Yuna stared at him, breathing hard. She had done everything she could. If this was the end, at least the cubs were safe. At least she had tried. Then Commander Tae-min appeared behind the attacker like a ghost. His blade flashed once. The attacker fell. The remaining attackers saw they were losing. They tried to retreat, but the main guard force arrived, flooding into the room. It was over in seconds. Yuna collapsed to her knees, shaking. Tae-min approached her. His armor scorched and dented, but his eyes bright with something like respect. "You drew them away from the cubs," he said. "You made yourself the target." "Of course I did," Yuna managed to say. "They're children." The cubs came out of hiding, crying for their parents. But when they saw Yuna on the floor, hurt and exhausted, they ran to her first. They pressed against her, making worried sounds. "You kept us safe," Minseo said. "You're very brave," June added. Little Hana just held on to Yuna and wouldn't let go. The medical team arrived within minutes. They carefully checked the cubs first, making sure they were unhurt. Only after the royal children were confirmed safe did they turn their attention to Yuna. She had cuts and burns from the debris. Her body was covered in bruises, but she had kept herself between danger and the cubs until the very end. As the medics worked on her injuries, Yuna heard heavy footsteps approaching. Emperor Hyun Woo entered the damaged nursery, his face a mask of controlled fury. Empress Sora was right behind him, her scales pale with shock. They went immediately to their children, gathering them into their arms. "We are safe, father," Minseo said, his voice trembling but brave. "The human protected us." "She was very brave," June added. Hana simply pointed at Yuna and said, "She's our guardian." The Emperor looked at Yuna for a long moment. Then he approached her and did something that made every guard in the room stiffen. He lowered himself to one knee, bringing his face level with hers. "You are injured," he said. "I'm okay," Yuna replied, though pain made her voice tight. "The cubs are safe. That's what matters. You could have hidden," the Emperor said. "You could have saved yourself. Instead, you drew the attackers away from my children. You made yourself the target." "Yes. Why?" Yuna looked at the three cubs clinging to their parents. Minseo, who had shown such courage. June, who had stayed quiet in the hiding place. Hana, who had trusted her completely. They were so young, so innocent. "Because they're children," Yuna said simply. "And protecting children is what we do. All of us. Human, Velthari, whatever species. If we can't protect our young, we don't deserve a future." The Empress made a soft sound. Tears glistened in her eyes. She came to Yuna and gently placed her hand on Yuna's shoulder. "You have proven yourself beyond any trial," she said. "You have shown us what humanity truly is." Emperor Hyunwoo stood. His voice rang out clear and strong. "Let it be known across all Velthari space. Dr. Yuna Park of Earth is hereby declared Velkari, guardian sworn. She has earned the right to stand as protector of the royal family. Only 3 others in all our history have held this honor." The guards, including Commander Taemin, placed their fists over their hearts in salute. It was a gesture of deepest respect. Yuna tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. She had pushed her body too far. Everything hurt. The adrenaline that had kept her going was fading, and exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. "Easy," the Empress said gently. "You need rest. Real rest this time." They took Yuna to the medical bay. The Velthari doctors worked carefully, healing her wounds with their advanced technology. They gave her medicine for the pain, and something to help her sleep. But before the sleep took her, she heard voices outside her room. "The peace talks will resume immediately," Emperor Hyunwoo was saying. "The attack has shown us that isolationist thinking leads only to violence. We need allies, and humanity has proven they understand what we value most." "Agreed," came Ambassador Daejung's voice. He sounded relieved and emotional. "Dr. Park has built a bridge between our peoples that words alone never could." "She will recover?" the Emperor asked the doctor. "Fully. She is resilient. Her body is already healing faster than we expected. Humans are remarkable in that way." "Yes," the Emperor said quietly. "They are." Yuna slept for 2 days. When she finally woke, she found the hospital room filled with gifts. Drawings from the cubs. Flowers from Earth that Ambassador Daejung had somehow acquired. Messages from all over the galaxy. Humans and Velthari alike had heard what happened. The story of the human who protected the alien children had spread like fire. Commander Taemin was the first visitor allowed in once she was awake. He stood at attention, formal and proper. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Sore," Yuna admitted, "but alive. Thanks to your quick thinking and sacrifice." He paused, seeming to struggle with words. "I judged you unfairly. When I first saw you sleeping with the cubs, I thought you were a threat. I didn't understand that you were already protecting them, even in sleep. You were doing your job, Yuna said. Protecting the royal family. I don't blame you. The Empress wishes to see you when you are well enough, Taemin said. And the cubs ask about you constantly. They want to know when their guardian will come back. Yuna smiled. Tell them soon. 3 days later, Yuna was released from medical care. She still wore bandages, but she could walk and move normally. The Empress had sent royal clothing for her to wear. Beautiful robes in colors that mixed earth blue and Velthari purple, a symbol of unity. They held a ceremony in the grand hall of the station. Hundreds of Velthari and dozens of humans attended. Yuna stood before the Emperor and Empress, with the 3 cubs at her side. The cubs insisted on being part of the ceremony. They wore matching formal robes and looked very serious and proud. Dr. Yuna Park, the Emperor said, his voice carrying through the hall. You have shown courage beyond measure. You have shown that honor and love for children crosses all boundaries. As Velkari, guardian sworn, you will forever be considered part of the royal family. You will have the right to speak in court. You will have our protection and our trust. He took out a ceremonial blade and made a small cut on Yuna's palm. Then, he did the same to his own. They pressed their hands together, mixing their blood. It was an ancient ritual, rarely performed. Blood of my blood, the Emperor said. The crowd erupted in cheers. Velthari and humans alike celebrated this moment. The cubs jumped up and down with excitement until their mother told them to calm down and behave properly. But the ceremony was just the beginning. Over the next months, the real work began. The peace talks moved forward quickly now. The attack had backfired on the isolationists. Instead of scaring the Velthari away from humans, it had shown them how much they had in common. Both species valued family. Both valued courage. Both were willing to sacrifice for the innocent. Treaties were signed, trade agreements made, cultural exchanges planned. The Terran-Velthari alliance became official. 2 species from different worlds, joining together to face the galaxy as friends. Yuna took a new position as permanent cultural liaison. She divided her time between Earth and the Velthari homeworld. She helped both sides understand each other. She explained human customs to curious Velthari children. She taught Velthari history to human students. She built bridges with patience and kindness. The cubs, of course, considered her their special guardian. They sent her messages constantly. They drew pictures of their adventures and wanted to show her everything they learned. When Yuna visited, they followed her everywhere, chattering about their day. They introduced her to their friends with pride. This is Yuna. She saved our lives. She's very brave. 6 months after the attack, Yuna attended the formal signing of the Alliance Treaty. It was held on Earth this time, in the United Nations building. Leaders from both species gathered. The media from dozens of worlds watched. Ambassador Dae Jung gave a speech about how far they had come, about how one person's courage had changed history. He told the story of Yuna and the cubs, of how she had shown that different species could care for each other as family. Then it was Yuna's turn to speak. She walked to the podium, aware that billions were watching across the galaxy. She looked out at the crowd. Humans and Velthari sitting together, former strangers now becoming friends. I'm not a hero, she began. I'm a scientist who fell asleep at the wrong time, in the wrong place. Or maybe it was the right time, and the right place. I don't know. What I do know is this. We are all different. Different bodies, different worlds, different ways of thinking. But some things are universal. Love for our children, the desire to protect the innocent, the courage to do what's right even when we're scared. She smiled, thinking of 3 small cubs far away who were probably watching this broadcast. I learned something important from my time with the Velthari. Being strong doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you feel fear and act anyway. Being different doesn't mean we can't be family. It means we have more to learn from each other. The Velthari taught me about honor and loyalty. I hope I taught them that humans can be trusted, that we will stand by those we care about, no matter what, that we don't give up, not on peace, not on friendship, not on the future we can build together. She paused, gathering her thoughts for the final words. The universe is vast and sometimes scary, but we don't have to face it alone. Today, Earth and Velthar become allies, but more than that, we become family. And family protects each other. Always. The applause was deafening. Velthari and humans stood together, celebrating this new chapter in galactic history. The treaty was signed with great ceremony. Earth's president and Emperor Hyunwoo shook hands, then embraced in the Velthari manner. After the ceremony, Yuna found a quiet corner. She pulled out her communication device and sent a message to 3 cubs on a distant station. I did it. The treaty is signed. You can grow up in a galaxy where humans and Velthari are friends. That's your future. Bright and full of possibilities. The reply came quickly. 3 excited voices talking over each other. We knew you could do it. You're the best guardian ever. When will you visit again? We miss you. Of one. Of one. Of one. Yuna laughed, feeling happy and proud, and a little bit amazed at how her life had changed. She had come to that station as a simple scientist. She had fallen asleep by accident, and she had woken up to a new destiny. Sometimes the greatest changes begin with small moments. A tired human, sitting down in a warm room. 3 curious cubs, deciding to trust a stranger. A peaceful nap that changed the future of 2 civilizations. And sometimes, the most important thing you can do is simply be there. Be brave when you need to be. Be kind when you can. And never, ever, stop protecting those who cannot protect themselves. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity, despite being smaller and weaker than many species, had something special. Persistence, loyalty, and an unbreakable instinct to protect children, no matter whose children they were. That was humanity's strength, and it would carry them to the stars.